Okay, we are live on everything except for Instagram. And let me just make sure and double check. Instagram. Okay, connect to streaming software to go live and go live. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. I'm Amanda Marino, owner of Next Level. And I have today a really awesome guest. I try to feature, different kind of professionals doing amazing work. And on my first phone call with Stephanie, we just hit it off so well. It was super easy and flowy. And I was like, yeah, we have to do a live stream. This is a different kind of topic, navigating motherhood with work-life balance. So Stephanie, if you could just, give a little backstory, who you are, what you do, and maybe why you do what you do, because I think your why is super awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. So my name's Stephanie Fornaro. I am the founder and CEO of Hello Nanny, a nationwide nanny agency. I started the agency out of a need that I found that I had years ago when I had my son. I ended up hiring a mother's helper to start, and then my mother's helper quickly evolved into my full-time nanny. And it was something that took a lot of setting aside pride to do, because I had this ideology that if I accepted help, then I was, failing as a mom, and I was weak, as our society tells us that if we accept help, then we have failed. And the reality is that society today just doesn't support the demands that we have in the workforce as moms. Wow. And also as our role at home with our children. In order to do it and do it really well and effectively, I think that help, or I don't think, I know that help is imperative. Yes. I never try to pretend that I do it all on my own. So that's why I started the agency.
It takes a village.
It really does. Yes.
So how did you get Pat? I'll let you continue introducing, and then I'll ask, but I have so many questions already.
Yeah. So, when I hired our nanny when my son was born, this was just about 7 years ago. I was in medical device sales at the time, and if you would ask me if I would own a nanny agency today, I would think you were crazy. But I've been in sales for many years. I was in software sales and medical device sales previously, and very demanding job. So I found myself really struggling to do it all. And so I had to take a step back and set aside my pride and hired the help. And then fast forward, my nanny's daughter was working for a nanny agency and wanted to go out on her own. And so I kept encouraging her to start an agency, which she then turned that around on me and said, well, I would do that, but not without doing it in partnership with someone like you, because you can bring to the business perspective and the operations and the sales and things like that. And I thought, well, in my sales roles, it's always been really important to me that I'm convicted behind what I do. And I thought, well, if there's anything that I can have conviction of, it's supporting moms and encouraging moms from a mountaintop to accept help. So here I am. I launched Hello Nanny in 2020. Gosh, 2. I'm losing track of the years.
It's flying by. Well, congratulations on following your heart. And I'm kind of like with you, like I could be the best person at sales if I believe in something. If I don't believe it, I'm going to be the worst person ever at it. I just wouldn't do it. Right. Like I wouldn't do it. But this is what I was thinking when you were talking before. What was the thing that you think helped you go over the edge of feeling like you were weak to needing help as a mother and to navigating all of these things, the career, the marriage, being a new mother? What was the thing that finally was like, no, it's actually okay and it's supportive and it's probably best for everybody, me, mm-hmm. family, my child, everybody to get what was that kind of was there a moment you had, or what was that like?
Yeah, I think it was a process, right? That took years to come to that revelation where I was remarried. So this is my second marriage. And I went into my second marriage with my husband now with a very, intentful conversation about what that dynamic looked like. So prior, I was a married single mom in my first marriage. Mm-hmm. And I went into my second marriage saying, I will not do that again. I want someone that is my partner, that works together with me in life and builds together, as opposed to separately. And so those conversations were had, and I found myself very quickly feeling that way again once I had my son. And it wasn't my husband's fault per se, because he has a business where he has 150 employees.
Right.
And so the expectation that I had on him that we were going to do this 50-50 was really, what I'm losing words.
Not reasonable.
Unrealistic.
Unrealistic.
Unrealistic. Yeah. So we ended up in my son's first appointment with his pediatrician, and you could hear my husband and I in the pediatrician's office, like in the exam room, arguing. And I'm embarrassed to say, but our pediatrician came in and she was like, hey, you too. She went from pediatrician to marriage counselor.
Good for her.
And yeah. And my husband was like, I've been telling her to hire some help and she won't do it. She refuses. And I said, well, because I'm not going to have someone else raising my son for me. That's just not happening. And she goes, your husband is offering a nanny and you won't take it? And I was like, well, yeah. So she's like, are you crazy? I was like, well, maybe. That's to be debated. And so I set aside my own pride and I was like, okay, fine. So we started with a mother's helper, and then she eventually evolved full-time into our nanny. And it was a realization for me that, this goes back, and hindsight's always 2020, I reflect back on my past and my upbringing and the fact that my biological mother was absent. And one thing that I could really never wrap my head around was, how can a mom abandon her child? How can you leave your child? And it wasn't until I had my son that I realized, like, wow, now I get it. Because there were times where I wanted to leave and it felt easier just to leave. But I knew, just based on my experience with my biological mom, that I would not do that to my kids. So despite my struggles that I was going through, like my mental health issues, right? Like it boiled down to like postpartum depression and feelings of just like rage and resentment, that for the thought of leaving felt easier, but the only reason I didn't was because I knew what that felt like. So I would not do that to my children just because I had that experience with my own biological mom. But for the first time in my life, I was 30, almost 35 years old. I thought, now it makes sense. Now I know why moms run away, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. And you made me emotional because I think I shared with you the first 18 months of my son's life, I was not in a good mental state. Like I was, coming from childhood trauma and abuse, like all that stuff. Like I was scared to be a mom. I was resentful, and like all the things that I can talk about now, I used to not be able to talk about without literally bawling because of the guilt and the shame, right? My son is now 19 and he's like my boy, like I'm his go-to, right? And so he doesn't remember the first 18 months of his life, but I do. And I'll never forget that. And was not a choice to not have that connection with my son and to feel that overwhelm. I just did, I got through it, thank God, with a lot of help, but I had to get my own help in different kinds of ways, If anyone's listening to this and you feel like you've fallen short as a mother or a father, like you're not alone. Remove the guilt and the shame, repair, and, there's resources out there to help you.
Yeah, there absolutely are. Very similar. I had my daughter when I was 20 years old, so I was a young mom. So I went,
young too.
Yeah. And so we grew up together.
Yes. Same thing. I say exactly the same thing. We grew up together.
I'm like, sorry, you were my guinea pig. So, and the mom that my son knows is very different than the mom that my daughter knows. So my daughter is 19. My son is 6.5. And when I was raising my daughter, I was in survival mode. It was just go, 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 go. And, the Burger King commercial, you can have it your way. In my home, it was, this is not Burger King. You don't get it your way.
Yeah.
You eat or you starve. That's for dinner. And that was my motto with my daughter. And when I had my son, I was just at a different season where I'm like, I'm just not even in the mood to argue. Give him the mac and cheese. Like, fine. Right. And she was like,
so well. I know this so well, and mine have the gap too. Like I have 19 and 12, not as large as yours, but I still have a pretty good sized gap. So It's been two totally different experiences with both of them.
Yeah, and my daughter's like, "What are you talking about? That was not the way you raised me. It was, this isn't Burger King, you eat or starve, or you don't get it your way."
But she
And
remembers.
she remembers. Oh, yeah, and she did not like that I said, "You know, Cadence, I'm I used to pick a lot of battles with you, and I was very adamant about my motherhood journey with you and the way it was gonna look like, but now I'm just kinda like, I'm just gonna go with the flow here. I'm very pliable."
Yes, same. Well, I asked my son the other day because he grew up with me too. Like he went through like I was a single mom with him, and the dad was in his life, but like we split things 50-50. I was never someone that got like child support, so I
Mhm.
was like, very poor. Like I lived in the hood. I lived on food stamps, and I asked my son the other day because he has everything in the world that he could want as a 19-year-old, right? But he also is a good kid. Like, do you remember those days of like being like really poor and like and he like oddly doesn't remember it.
Mhm.
Kind of want him to have some kind of connection with it to see like how hard we work to get where we are as a family.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that, and I actually have a similar backstory where I'm one of 8 kids.
Holy
Um,
moly.
mhm. We,
Not to be mean, but I would have run away too if I was your mom with 8 kids.
well, my biological mom only had my sister and I.
Oh, okay, so
My
this is
dad
okay.
Yeah, so my dad remarried, and then my stepmom had 3 boys into the marriage, so there were 5 just into the marriage combined, and
Right.
then together they had 3 more, my sisters.
Holy moly, they liked kids, huh?
Yeah, they're yes, it was a very busy house. So similar to you, like I didn't feel like I could be a mom. I had no desires to be a mom. And then life happened and I was like, okay, I guess this is the plan. So here we go. Hold on tight. And so I had my daughter really young, but the same idea is that my daughter went through struggles with me as a single mom. I'm at a very different season of life where I have the resources and means to hire support, whereas raising her, I didn't have those resources. And I was a single mom working in software sales 60, 80 hours a week. Her dad had weekend visitation. So it was a juggle. And I was also going to school full time. I was taking 18 units.
Mm.
So my daughter is actually a freshman this year in college, and she's taking 15 units. And she called me and said, "Mom, how the heck did you do 18 units? And you worked full time and you took care of me?" I was like, "I don't even know."
Getting that appreciation too,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
to know what you like. I want my son to like, I'm so grateful for that time of struggle because I don't know if and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I never
Mhm,
forget that because I never want to, right?
mhm.
It was such an important time to go through. It sounds like it changed us who we are, but we're still in touch with it. You know what I mean? It's like the people that forget about that stuff, just like, oh yeah, well, this is where I am now. Like I'll never forget those times, and I'm grateful for them.
No, actually, I was over the Thanksgiving break. We have a lemon tree at our house. So my son, I had him cut all the lemons and put them in a bucket, and we took them to the store. Like we were away from the grocery store just enough so we weren't competing with the grocery store. We were in front of the boutique. And he sold his lemons for 25 cents each.
Oh,
And in the summertime, we sold lemonade with him and his cousins. And these are things that I do with him because it's a sliver of like the fundaments like that I was raised on, which my dad really instilled in me at a young age because we were a big family. They couldn't afford to pay for cheerleading and the extracurriculars. And so anytime I wanted to do something, I had to figure out a way to be resourceful and figure out how to do it.
yes.
And so one of those was picking this mistletoe and selling it, selling candy,
That's amazing.
whatever it was. And I did door to door newspaper sales. I worked when I was 10 years old doing that. So there were skills that were instilled in me, which back then I actually resented my parents because I had friends that had everything handed to them
Yes.
and they had a very easy life.
Yes.
And I resented my parents for making me work for everything I had down to, when it was time for me to drive, it was like, well, there's this bucket for you. If you can get it running, it's yours. So
Yeah,
yeah,
guys.
it's those experiences that instill grit, right? And so that's something that I think is really important for me, that I instill that grit into my kids. Even though I can provide for them, I still make it a point that I do things with them that make them understand the value of a dollar and hold them accountable and responsible.
I completely agree. And God, I mean, I knew we had so much similarity in common before, but like everything you're saying is exactly me. So like when I was like in elementary school, we knew a lot of the neighbors. So I would clean people's houses. I would help with babies like be a mother's helper. Like I was always doing a side little hustle. But that was like, nobody was making me do it. I just did it.
Yeah.
My mom just encouraged. And my daughter is probably on her like fourth business now. She had the bake sale the other day. She sold slime. She's made bracelets. It's like her creativity, and she does all these things, which is super cute, and it's going to help like you, like add the grit, have a desire. Like, I feel like I was kind of, society was conditioning me to find a man to take care of me and make me financially successful. And I never subscribed to that. Like I wanted my own. So yeah,
I think that's amazing, because that's one of the lessons that I learned in my first marriage was, there was a season where I felt stuck in my marriage, and I left on my own accord and was just like, I don't care how hard this is, I'm done. Like, I will not tolerate or stand for this any longer. And my ex-husband, we are fabulous now. We have a fabulous family. So this isn't to like throw shade or anything, but when emotions are high, people do things that are out of character, and they're desperate to like get that person back. But one of those attempts was like financial starvation, where I was just going into my upper division courses at UC Davis, and he was not paying child support, and it made it very hard on me. And so because he was the primary breadwinner, I didn't work. I was a stay-at-home mom. And so I remember asking him, like, why are you doing this? And he said, well, you chose this. If you came back, it would all go away.
That's tough.
Yeah. And I remember saying, I will eat top ramen and live in a cardboard box before I go back. No.
That's great.
So
yeah, there's a lot of women that are in that position though, that can't feel like they can't leave because of financial situations, or maybe men too. You know what I mean? There's definitely people that stay in it for kids, definitely people that stay in it for money. And I'm not one of them.
Well, the thing is how uncomfortable are you willing to be? Right. And I was willing to be very uncomfortable.
Good for you. So let's talk about your organization. So Hello Nanny has been open for
3 years. It'll be 3 years this February.
Awesome. I will be 5. Well, next level will be 5 in March, but I've been on my own a little longer, doing like my own thing since August of 2019. So it started, you kind of shared how it started, right? Your nanny's daughter.
Yeah. So my nanny's daughter. So my nanny had shared some stories with me about her experience as a nanny. And I just couldn't comprehend how families could treat a nanny the way that she had been treated in the past. Because for me, she was like, an angel in my eyes.
Yeah.
He was heaven sent. And so I couldn't fathom anyone mistreating any human, let alone someone that's there to help and support you. And so she really became an extension to our family and really a part of our family. Like, she was more like a mom to me. And so I became really close with her family and her daughter, and we ended up starting Hello Nanny. We eventually parted ways. We just had a difference of, objectives, like business goals and objectives. But we parted ways, and I continued pursuing the business. And just with that mission to support moms and ensure that nannies are represented. I feel like there's just a huge gap in the system. Like, families have a need, and then nannies also have needs. but they're not speaking the same language.
Yes.
And so Hello Nanny is essentially the intermediary to bridge that gap between families and nannies. So from, communication, professionalism, industry standards, legal pay, not making your nanny bill collect, like ask for their paycheck, because that's really common.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
comfortable, sure.
Right. And families being late on their payments, or, asking nannies, hey, we don't need you this week because family's in town. So how about next week you just work an extra, 10 hours to make up for this week's hours? Yeah. And it's called banking hours. There's just things that families, and I did it. I was guilty of the banking hours thing. But I was fortunate enough to have a nanny that I had a really great relationship with, where she felt safe to say, hey, Steph, that's actually like really frowned upon in the industry. And most nannies will actually quit working with their families instead of just saying, like my nanny did, where she had that conversation with me. Yeah. They'll just quietly bow out.
Yeah. She educated you and you were open to it. You didn't
know. And you wouldn't know. And then you'd lose your nanny going, oh my gosh, I lost my nanny. I don't know why. Well, the reality is they just weren't bold enough to say, hey, don't bank hours. You shouldn't do that. And when you think about it in a corporate perspective, because I'm from a corporate background, I was like, well, yeah, I guess so. Like if my company, I work 40 hours a week, that's what's expected of me. But if one week they were like, well, next week work 50 and then the following 30, and then we won't need you during Christmas because, the CEO takes a vacation and you're not needed.
That's not.
The instability, the inconsistency, the unpredictability, it's their livelihood, right? And
they have their own families and things to take care of, this is
right.
Yeah, no, I kind of came into my, we talked about the connection, like we'll often work with some of the same families, right? Sometimes families, we step in and have a 24/7 live-in mental health or recovery companion while the kids are being taken care of by the nanny, and the mother is kind of learning how to live, with the psychiatry and whatever else she has going on, but in the home and the support. So I noticed, I did the companion work for a while, and I was treated really poorly. I was put in dangerous situations. And I was like, I could do this so much better. I would be really good. So like I stay team centered, kind of like you play that, like I make sure my team is good. Like, hey, if you don't feel like you're up for this job after I give you the information, you don't have to take it. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to call you. Like if we stay focused on keeping the team healthy and having boundaries and things like that, and like never let them discuss finances or anything like that, like it just creates such a better outcome for everybody, for the clients. And so I think that you're like me, you saw things that you felt like you could improve on. I won't say do better, improve on. I learned a lot of lessons from mentors of some things to do, and some things I'm not doing that,
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we're working on now and testing is giving access to everyone to the agency model and resources. So because there's so many families that do hire their own nanny, and we completely understand that like I can't tell you how many times I'm in a Facebook group and I see someone say, I need someone tonight. Can anyone watch my kids? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not judging, but oh my gosh, like what? Like they haven't been vetted. They have not been background checked. Like, is anyone aware of the trafficking going on in the United States?
Yeah,
no. And so we're rolling out a new self-serve model, and it's called, there's multiple options. One is BYOC, so bring your own candidate, run them through the agency vetting process. So they have access to our step-by-step process, our resources, and our software, and all of our tools to walk them through. So if they find a candidate on Facebook, great, BYOC, run them through the agency model.
Yeah.
And then there's the DIY. And then there's the concierge. The concierge is really our bread and butter. Those are our network of nannies that we pull from, that we have relationships with. But I'm expanding those offerings just because I really want to make sure that when families are hiring support, that they're going through and even they have access to the nanny agency model and resources to do it properly and just to make sure that their kids are protected.
That's awesome, because that is kind of scary. I mean, I've always been super particular, like who watches my children or who my children are with when I'm not around, just, probably because of the things I've gone through. But that's good that, if they aren't able to, or if they don't want to use your services, or they want to hire somebody on their own, maybe they can't, whatever, you're giving a solution. And that's the thing that we do too. Like, I have like a resources thing on my page. Like, so even if it's something I can't help, I will always find somebody to fit, and also provide them with education and resources that are free.
Yeah, absolutely. I really believe in leading with value.
Yes.
You could go through our industry blog and piecemeal it together and figure out how to hire your own nanny with our blog. Like, that is the goal. The goal is that at the end of the day, that people are properly vetting caregivers, people that watch their children. Because as parents, we are expected to just go out there and hire our own nanny or caregiver support. When you work for a corporation and you need to hire someone for your team, you go to the HR department.
Yes.
The HR department has all these resources and tools to effectively recruit. But as parents, we're like, oh, okay, there's this app online with millions of profiles. Cool. And you're looking through for a needle in a haystack. Everyone has signed up on there because they've realized that childcare is lucrative, but not everyone on those sites are qualified.
Yes.
Nicely.
Yeah.
And so that's really where the agency comes into play, is to ensure that families have that filter. And the analogy I use all the time is, when we need our engine or our cars maintained, we take it to a professional mechanic, right? When we need legal advice, we go to a lawyer.
Yes.
But when we hire for our children, we do it on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. I know in the pandemic time because it was so hard to work, right? And have my daughter home and needing her, everyone was new with figuring out how to do things on school. I was just starting a business. Like, I only went with people that I knew, like my friend's daughter watched my daughter, but it's not everyone has that luxury, and it is scary to just have some random person watch your child. I mean, that's your most valuable, thing in the world.
Well, and going back to recovery and what you do, right? I think that what I've found is some, I will say, some of the common denominator of those who struggle with addiction is sexual abuse. And that can happen, when you put your children in the hands of someone that isn't trustworthy. And then 20, 30 years later, you're dealing with your child who's struggling with addiction because of something that happened in their childhood. And not to say as a parent, that was intentional, but our job is to really protect them and safeguard them from the unthinkable happening. I mean,
it's not just addiction, it's serious mental illnesses. I mean, there's certain disorders there's so many things that can happen from that. I thank God every day that I'm functional and okay with it, because I've been to long-term psychiatric facilities where they're like, oh yeah, they went through childhood trauma. And I'm like, geez, it's it hits me every time, so it can be prevented. So you're not and I love this about you, you're not just doing your business and doing what you're doing for you. You're also trying to add value to parents in the world. And that's why I have even this, I feel like there's enough garbage content out there of just random silly things. Let's put out some good information. I've taken that on as a personal. So I love that you're doing that. You're just trying to make it a safer, place for parents and children. I love that.
Yeah. I really take the approach to life of using the things that have happened in my life and transitioning them for purpose. What is the purpose? What was the purpose of those experiences, and how can they be used for good?
Yes. Same. Yeah. Vibe. So just say, someone it is interested in working, like sees this, scrolls by and they're like, oh my God, this is what I need. Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so they would just reach out to us at hellonanny.com and they inquire as a family, or if they're a nanny looking for a job, they would apply for a role that's listed on our site. If there isn't a job that's listed or available, they can still apply to be a part of our agency. So that way, when an opportunity in their area comes available, they can be notified of that. But if they're a family looking for support, they would just go to our website and inquire, provide us a little bit about them, where they reside, and the hours that they're looking for, what kind of support they're looking for. We schedule an intake call with every family. We meet with them personally. So this is less of a technology company and more of an actual service.
Yes.
So that human element, where I talk with every family that comes to our website. I understand what their needs are and then assess whether or not our services are a fit for them. Mm-hmm. And then from there, they would pay the deposit to start their search, and we would get to work. We have an in-house recruiter that does all of the recruiting. So we get to know the family, craft their job requisition, broadcast that, and we recruit for them today.
That's awesome. That's so similar to my model too. I'm involved in everything to a degree, right? In every case, but we always do a consultation call. We meet as a team and figure out who the right fits would be as options and things like that. I love that. Mm-hmm. So they're a concierge, like hands-on, boutique model with your company.
Yeah, you're not scrolling through hundreds of profiles looking through a needle in a haystack. It's a matchmaking process. Our recruiter really, I would say 2 out of 10 people that actually apply are presented to the families we work with.
Oh, wow. So yeah. I like that too. Like, I remember a year into business, it was kind of to a place like, do we build this model where we have like a ton of people everywhere available to do everything? Or do we want to stay like boutique and like handpick people? And like, I decided that like, no matter where we go to, like, I wanted to stay like, yes, we have people that can do everything everywhere and can travel, but I don't need like a massive list of people. I know there's a need for that out there for other things, but for my company, like, I want it to be like, I want to know everybody. I want to know who is going to live with a family and with my name attached to it. Right. And that their family's safe and that the client is, everything. So it's very, people are giving us a lot of trust, in these situations, and we have to make sure we're doing our work as the owners and the leaders,
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the model that we have. But do you offer services just in Florida, or are you nationwide?
Even international. So we've had clients in London, Switzerland, South America, but all over the United States. We have great people and people that can speak multiple languages too, because that's been, very important. Males, females, older, younger, different backgrounds, different education. Some people are, I have two coaches on my team that are former teachers. And then I have like a nurse. I have, so very, sometimes they've had other career paths and then came here, and sometimes, but everyone has to be to a certain level of training, like CPR, first aid. We have a whole like system of checklists that is like minimal requirements, which is not, I don't think, a standard in the industry.
Yes, very similar to us. We do the background checks, full background check, DMV report, CPR certification. We gather any type of certifications, vaccination records if it's required by the family. And our goal is really to stay that boutique, even though we are a nationwide agency, that we remain boutique, right? That's how we really differentiate ourselves, is by being a boutique agency that offers that human touch. Because I think technology is great, but when relied on too heavily can kind of be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, you lose that. And this is I'm dealing with people in crisis situations, whether it's mental health, whether it's life changes, whether it's substance use, whether it's eating disorder, whatever it is, they're coming to me in a crisis, right? I have to provide like a certain level of personal touch, or else I feel like I'm not helpful. And I believe that there are all the resources out there available. There's needed things for different things, but I just know where I want to stay, which is like you. Do you hear, I'm going to guess that this is going to be something else aligned. Do you hear often from your nannies that you were your favorite person to work for? Like they like working for you?
Yeah, yes, they do. And the reason being is that we uphold industry standards, right?
Yes.
And that we educate families, that we require them to uphold those industry standards by offering a work agreement that's clearly defined, that we require that they pay legally and above board, so not under the table. That way they are not having to bill collect from them on a weekly basis. Like it's just auto set up on their pay. And then offering things like PTO, because burnout is real. Like we as moms experience burnout.
Sunday, Monday, I'm not going to lie. I went and shut down on Monday, yesterday, all day. I was like, I can't. I was in the holiday, the kids, the family, we had one that had surgery. Like I was in full burnout. I had to take a day.
Yeah, absolutely. And nannies are not immune to that. And, like I've had families who reach out and they're like, yeah, I would like her to, or him to work Monday through Friday for 5 hours. And then on the weekends for 5 hours. So it's 40 hours a week, right? Or they would work it out to where it was 40 hours a week, but 7 days a week.
No.
And I'm like, no, that's just not realistic. Right. Yeah. And that's why nannies, especially the career nannies, the ones that are genuine qualified nannies, work and go through an agency, is because they know, like, we're the intermediary. They know that we're going to reel the family back in and say, hey, then let's hire 2 people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, because I actually had a phone call right before this. I was actually like getting ready on the phone. It was someone that worked for us in the very beginning, and we worked with a ton, and he was amazing. He moved away and he's coming back, and he was like, listen, I'm reaching out to you first. Like I loved working for you. Like I want to reach out to other people too. And I was like, actually you should, just as if you're going to make the most, because I'm honest, like work for other people. If you want to stay busy, like it's a very unpredictable business of like what we're going to need. And like, I wish I had a fortune teller to tell me like, what am I going to need the next few months? I'm just not in that space. I don't think you are either. So I encourage, people for me to work for other good people too. But yeah, it made me happy that he was like, yeah, I really always love working for you. The fact that you're even telling me to go work with other good people, like shows me that you really care. Like I really care. You know what I mean? That's not like fake. It's not nonsense. I want everyone. And I also want to hear from like people that do work with me, like, what do you like? What do you not like? What is your boundaries? Like, what is comfortable for you? What are, like, and I think that's probably what you have to do with your nannies too. Like, I actually have one companion that loves to work with mothers with young children, and that's not common. Most companions will just kind of want to be one-on-one with their person, or like, but there's some that love to have like that dip in with the little kids again, because that's not in the life scope. So there's just a diverse, there's something for everyone, but you have to kind of know your team and your people.
Yeah, and that's really common with nannies too. Some only want infants, right? That like that's their specialty, is working with infants. And then after about age 2, 3, it's like, okay, and then they go on to to a new family that has an infant, and their life cycle is 2 to 3 years.
Wow. Whereas, interesting. That's a new information for me. I didn't know.
Yeah. Whereas there's some nannies who are like, I would love to get in with a family, at the ground floor and raise their children until they're 18, 19, even beyond. Right. And then there's nannies who are like, no, I don't deal with infants at all. And I'll only deal with toddlers and up. So it's knowing it, again, it's just knowing those intricacies about the industry and knowing, who you're hiring and having those conversations and making sure that you're not hiring someone that isn't comfortable working with infants.
Absolutely. And and everyone has a right? So like you don't want to like put somebody like a square peg in a round hole, right? You want people to shine where they want to shine and what they're good at naturally. Like I want people to share like, okay, this is what I'm really good at. This is what and then see them in action, doing those things. You know what I mean? So it's definitely supportive of the family and the individuals who are working for you. So what advice would you give to any mothers or fathers? Because it's definitely a lot of single fathers too, right? I see a lot of that more and more. What would you like give to anyone who's maybe feeling the feelings that you and I kind of experienced in the beginning? Like, what do I do? I'm overwhelmed. I'm depressed. Like whatever they're feeling the struggle, the pressure of juggling multiple things. What would be some like takeaways you'd give to people?
I would just say, like, do some soul searching, figure out what's important to you. And that, maybe it might be, I don't want someone taking care of my child. Like, I really want that time with my child. That's really important to me. Then figure out where you can bring in help and support, whether that's hired help or whether that's help from your community, from your family members, being bold enough to say, and because I know that's like a trauma response is self-sufficient. And thinking I can do this all on my own. I don't need any help. Right. And I would just say that do the soul searching, figure out what it is that's stopping you from asking for help, and figuring out what kind of help is it that you would like. Because if you are or unregulated, are you genuinely going to be a pleasant parent, right? Just because you're there doesn't mean that you're pleasant. Yes. And if your children have an experience with you that is unpleasant, then how valuable is that? And so that's one thing that I found is that having the proper support is what makes me a more pleasant mom and a more checked in mom. So I've been able to like hire, and it doesn't mean I have a full-time support, right? But it's budgeting 20 hours a week for a family assistant who comes in and does our laundry, general tidiness of the home, does our grocery shopping, does our meal prepping, and cooks dinner.
That right now.
and she cooks dinner 4 nights a week.
Oh my God, that sounds like the best thing ever. That like makes me feel like I can breathe.
Yeah, 20 hours a week, right? When you budget that and you think about it, this person isn't raising your what's that?
Precious time right there. Like time is, time's the most valuable thing we have,
Right, absolutely. So rather than buying the Louis Vuitton or the Gucci or the whatever, right? I would rather pay someone 20 hours a week to do those things and take those things off my plate. So, and this is Tuesday through Friday. So I pick up my son from school. I get him off to jujitsu practice. I get to sit and watch and relax. And I'm not thinking about, oh my gosh, when I get home, I've got to do the laundry and then I need to throw dinner on. And that's going to take me 30 minutes. And then it's going to be like 9 o'clock before he gets to bed. And you're thinking of all these things. And it's like,
yeah, it doesn't end.
Nope. I get to go home. Dinner's ready. We have dinner. I do bedtime routine. I get him to bed. And
love that.
And when I didn't have support like that, I was short fused. I was frustrated. I was annoyed. I wasn't really checked in with my son because I'm thinking, I can't do that with you right now because I have to do dinner. I can't do that with you right now because I've got all these things to take care of.
And so owning a business like we do, right? Like right. That. I never thought I'd get to a place where I could not respond to all texts, emails, and messages on social media. And I'm past that mark. Like I literally can't anymore. And I have help like on my team, like Sarah, Jasmine. I have a PR person. So like I have people that do all these things and I am to that place. Like I need this.
I just responded to a text and I have help. I have support.
Yeah.
I just responded to a text message this morning from October.
Okay, great.
I was like, I'm so sorry.
I mean, I had to reschedule this because of just that. Like, I mean, we put like, there was actually this, I'm going to send it to you. It's on Instagram, but it was, the holistic psychologist. Do you follow her?
Maybe I'm there. That is, sounds right up my alley. So probably.
She put like this thing up. It said the parentified daughter is full of anxiety. She's exhausted. Here's what she needs to hear. And it was literally like, oh my God, the parentified daughter has been hypervigilant since childhood. She overworks. She's there for everyone around her and she puts people before herself. Like how many of us can relate to that? Not just as women. I know there's men too. Mm-hmm. She's been raised in a culture that says a woman can and should do it all. Like, I was like, yeah, I mean, there's parts of me that definitely have grown in that area,
Mhm.
but there's parts of me that revert to that constantly, and I think we all can find a version of, like, maybe not everyone can, afford to have a nanny or to hire
Mhm.
help like that, but there, like
Mhm.
you said, there can be community, there can be family, like, you don't have to do it alone, I think, is like the greatest message. Like, and you don't have to have all the answers. Like, if you were a 20-year-old mom and I was a 24-year-old mom and we were both like lost and felt the way we felt as new moms, and like look
Mhm.
where we are now, like there's like hope out there for everybody, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I recently just became certified in was being a fair play method facilitator. And I don't know if if many people are very familiar with it, but I'll say it's a great tool. It's almost like a game that couples can play, to have conversations about dividing the load, right? Because the reality is that even if you're a stay-at-home mom, like it's a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week job. And even if you're a dad who's going off to work and coming home every day, like the the stay-at-home parent, because there's a lot of stay-at-home dads now too, right? Where and the mom goes off and she's working.
Yeah.
But the reality is that when that person who works comes home, that it's not time to kick your feet up, and just relax, because the truth be told is that that stay-at-home parent is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the reality is that in today's modern society, that the workload that exists domestically and corporately is it's not realistic for even two people,
No.
a mom and a dad.
Listen, I have a partner who's like on it with everything. Like, he is maybe on the line of OCD. Like, he cleans, he cooks, he does lunch. Like, he's like, and I feel like I can't keep up with where he's at, right? And so then I have to try to hold myself to this higher standard. But like, I have to tell myself, you know what? If he wants to be like that, like he can be like that. Like, I can do my part on my comfortable terms.
Yeah, well, and that's actually something like that I admire about my husband is um that he's not there's conversations that I've had with him about dividing the domestic load, and he's like, I'm not doing that, so we'll hire someone. And I'm like, great, perfect. I mean, as long as you can cash the check, fine. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. Either.
but when it comes to like our son, we actually even created an arrangement where we have what we call the default parent, and we trade week on, week off. So we're still married, happily married, but we have a week on, week off default parent. And so when it's his default week, he's responsible for our son, from morning routine to homework to getting him to school to picking him up to getting him extracurriculars, everything. Not to say that I don't jump in and help,
Right.
but it's the week that I get to, book my networking dinners, go to conferences, have dinner with my girlfriend, go get my massage, take care of myself day. And then the week that it's my default week, that's his week to go, golfing, client dinners, travel, work, whatever it is. So that way he knows, like, that is my week to stack what I need to stack to take care of my life.
Yeah.
And then we alternate, we trade off that time so that we get to take care of ourselves in between parenting and our relationship.
I love that. That's beautiful. See, my partner and I, we moved in together in March and bought a home, and we both have two children. Mine are much older. Mine are 19 and 12. He has 10 and 8. Somehow we have them the same days. So we have 2 days a week or 3 that we have no kids, and
Yeah.
then all kids. And then so it's sometimes a little bit of a shocker, like both of it, but it's and listen, it was great. Like, I have a two great, really, really great fathers of my children. I get along really, like you said, like just co-parenting. And I think that makes a huge difference for the child. You know what I mean? Like, my kids are not from broken homes. They're just loved extra.
Yeah.
Because we unite as a front for the kids always. That's never changed.
Right. Absolutely. And that's actually something that was really important to me when I went through my divorce. And something I struggled with was feeling like, because I come from a broken home, I am repeating the cycle. Like, my daughter is also going to come from a broken home, and it's my fault because I'm leaving. Right.
Same.
And I carried a lot of guilt for that, but I had to ask myself, if my daughter was in the situation that I'm in today, what would I want her to do? And the answer was so easy.
Yeah.
I would want my daughter to walk away. Absolutely. And so I left, but it was at the top of my mind all these years. It was so important to me. One thing my parents could not do is they could not be in the same room together my whole life. And I didn't get to have holidays with my parents together ever.
Yeah, that's not about you. That's about them. And like, right. For me, there's nothing that I can't, like, my kids come first. Like, I don't care about whatever. Right. I'm not sticking it to anybody. I don't care. I want my kids to benefit from me and their dad getting along.
Right. And so her dad and I, that was one of the things where it was like, hey, we have our differences, but we don't need to bring her into the middle of those differences. And she deserves to have a family. She deserves to have her mom and dad in the same room and have her cake and eat it too type of thing. Right.
Yeah.
And so a couple of years ago, we actually did a road trip from Texas to the Smoky Mountains. So we went up to Gatlinburg and we did a road trip, and it was my husband, my daughter, my stepdaughter, and my daughter's dad. So it was this blended family, road trip, and everyone was like, "You're going on a road trip with your ex-husband?" Yeah, I was like, yeah. And it was pretty, it was awesome. And even people would tell my husband, "You're going on a road trip with her ex-husband?"
Yeah, well, listen, that's a secure man. And obviously, you know what I mean? Like, my son's graduation, I had my daughter's father, my son's father, who hosted the party here with me and my partner. Mm-hmm. So, like, everyone gets along. It's the weirdest thing. And my therapist tells me all the time, she's like, "Amanda, she's like, I wish your situation was more common. It's not." Mm-hmm. So I'm so grateful for that. And I say it like it's easy. It's not been an easy path to get here. Mm-hmm. But like, I'm so grateful for it, and I will do anything to keep it like that. Like, I love kids. Like, my son, he's just loved so much. We haven't been together since he was 18 months old. He doesn't act the way. My daughter, that was a harder one. That was like her first heartbreak. And that's like such a hard thing to do, right? To your child, knowing that like I'm the cause of their first heartbreak. But I think, we got through it all together. I put her in therapy, let them be mad at me, let them show their feelings and support them. And we're in a much different place now. And everybody is, but it's definitely a hard path to get to that, but it's worth all the work and putting all your own personal differences aside for your child. 100%. Yeah,
absolutely. My daughter when I first started dating my husband, she was 7 years old, and she tried to break us up. She did everything. I won't share some of the tricks she pulled out of her hat, but she went pretty low, trying to embarrass me and and so.
But it wasn't funny then.
Well, I laughed then. She would pull my underwear out and say, like, "Can you believe she wears these?" Thinking it would scare him off.
Right.
And it was just so funny. But now hindsight's 2020, and my husband is her dad. That's her dad. And she has two dads, and both of her dads get along really well. And there's her dad actually comes because we relocated to Texas from California a few years during COVID, and her dad comes here and stays in our home, in our guest room, and visits, and whatever it takes for her to be healthy and happy is what's important to us. And
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, this has been really, really nice. I could talk to you like all day, every day, and I want to hang out with you because you're how can people find you? I did put your website on here. How can people follow you on different social media platforms and things like that? Like, how can...
Yeah, so they can find us at Hello Nanny, DOTCOM. It's hellonanny.com. Hellonanny.com. So www.hellonanny.com is our website, but our handle is hellonanny.com. So it's Hello Nanny, DOTCOM is our handle.
Got it. I'm writing that.
And that is on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and Instagram. I've been trying to do the TikTok thing, but I'll tell you.
Oops.
Hellonanny.com. We have a TikTok, I I'm aging myself here. TikTok, I just can't.
Oh, hon, I'm with you. I have it managed. I'm being
And
honest.
then
I don't even have the app anymore because I can't. I can't go from Africa to someone with some kind of disability to, I mean, it's like too overstimulating for this 43-year-old brain.
it is. I'm so glad I did not grow up in the age of social media.
Yes, me too. And I'm so glad there's not stuff online.
Everything's at the bottom of a box.
What?
That I said everything is at the bottom of a box in my garage.
Yeah.
That if I choose to pull out, I can pull out. It's not online. And you know, the I guess the extent of my like social media in my childhood was the Yahoo chat rooms, ASL.
Yeah.
Who remembers ASL?
Yeah. There's I was very grateful that I was not that was not in my time, in my era, or else I would have permanent things out there. I have paper pictures and proof of enough things. So, well, thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably. Like, you made me emotional, and like I think that that's super important and people can connect to. My 19-year-old just walked in. Say hi, Merrick. He says hello. So thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably and you know, sharing these resources with families. If you can go on LinkedIn and maybe put like a link to the two things like that you have, your concierge nanny service, as well as your, you know, the vet, bring your own person or bring your own nanny.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you could, I think that those are helpful resources. And anything else you want to share, because this on Instagram won't stay live, but it'll stay live on all the other outlets. So you can add links and things like that to it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure.
You're so amazing. I'm so happy for you and proud of you and your family. And it just sounds like just such a beautiful story.
Likewise. I look forward to staying in touch.
All right. I'm going to end it. I'm going to end it really quick, but I'm not going to. Hold on. It's still not ended. Why isn't it ending?